This is a quick little tutorial on how to enhance a fairly dull image. So I looked for something that was a little bit grainy, a little bit dull on pexels.com, which is difficult because they're quite enhanced and quite vibrant colors. So in this case, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see that it's pretty grainy. So I'll keep the grain in the image, but it really makes the image kind of dull, right? It makes it kind of dull. So what can you do to improve this image and to turn it into something like that, where I push the background back and then I focused on the car, and the car is a little brighter. You can see the difference if I switch between my tabs. So it's a fairly simple process. So I'm going to start with the original right here. So first things first, I will make this background layer a layer 0. So I just double click on it and I turn that into a layer 0, because then it's not a background anymore, it's a layer. I will duplicate this layer. So I think there's a Command J, I believe, on the Mac, or Control J on the PC to make a duplicate of that. And what I do on this new layer is I apply a very simple filter. If you go to filter, you go to other, to the very bottom, you go to HighPass. And HighPass does this to your image, which is like, what is he doing? It kind of makes it kind of like grayish, and you see some colors through it. You can zoom in a little bit. It really makes it, kind of messes it up. It's almost like, I kind of said that it kind of highlights the highlights and then dulls everything down. So you can increase and decrease your high pass. If you decrease it, it's like completely gray. If you increase it quite a lot, it almost looks like the same image. So I want to stay around, the 10 thing of this. So I'll put it at 9.5, just to increase the contrast a little bit. So I can still have the image a little bit defined. So there's the difference, right? That's the original, that's the high pass filter. And then what I do now on this layer, I change the blending mode. So I have actually my layer right here, my opacity is at 100%, and I change my blending mode to overlay. And overlay does that. If you turn it on and off, this is what it does to the image. It really sharpens it. It's almost like an HDR kind of filter. So this is kind of the trick that I wanted to bring up. So it really works on low res images of people, for example. And again, you need to work within the slider of that high pass filter. So you have to be careful with what you can do, because otherwise it saturates the crap out of skin and highlights and lowlights on hair or eyes. So it looks a little bit alien-ish. So you have to be a little careful with that. So this is the quick little trick on that. And then what else can I do to this image? So I go back to my lower layer, and then I can do a couple of adjustments. So I can do what I like to do actually very often. I like to do a vibrance adjustment layer. You click on your vibrance right here. This is the mask, of course. This is your vibrance properties. The vibrance allows you to have both the color vibrance and the saturation. So if you go into hue and saturation, you can only saturate the image and it saturates everything. Whereas here, you can desaturate the image, and then it becomes almost grayish. But then you push the vibrance up to 100%. And then you start to move the saturation back up, kind of thing. So you have a little bit of control of that, on how to dull an image up or down, right, kind of thing, right? So actually I can move my vibrance layer above, and you can see what it does, right? So it kind of dulls things back again. I want to push the colors down. So anyway, you can really saturate the crap out of it, and you can bring the vibrance down, and it's the other way around. That's what I wanted to do. I bring the vibrance down, but I saturate the image a little bit. So it kind of dulls everything in the background, all the dull colors, but in the bright colors of the car, the yellow really pops out. If I turn it on and off, this is what it does. You can see the difference. So it's a quick way to enhance an image, to really emphasize the car, add a little drama to the image. So it's something quite simple like this. So I want to keep it, very simple like this. But what I want to do now is I want to select all of those layers. So select first layer, top layer, by pressing and holding my shift key, and I hit the little folder bottom down there to create a group in my layer panel. So now it creates a group, and I can call it whatever I want. I'll keep it group 1. It doesn't matter really at this point. But what I want to do is I want to apply a filter over the whole group. So I can't, for example, I want to do a tilt shift or lens blur. So I can go into filter, but they're all grayed out. So how do I apply filter on all of those 2 layers, or 3 layers, I should say? So what I have to do is I have to turn my group layer my group one that has all my layers in there. I right click on the gray bar, not on the icon. I right click on there and I convert to a smart object. So my whole group of layers now is becoming a smart object. If I double click on that, you can see that the little icon right there in the right corner of the layer says group one. If I double click on that, it will open up the whole group as a new layer, as a new window, I should say, as group 11.psb. And then this is, again, this is your layers right here where you can individually edit if you want to. So I don't want to close that because I don't want to mess with what I've done already. So I'm going back to my original or my project right there where my group is now a smart object. And now I can apply a filter. And as soon as you have a smart object, it becomes a smart filter, meaning it's editable. You can always come back to it and change it again. So I want to go into blur gallery right there. And I have a couple of options. I have tilt shift, I have path, etc. So I'm going to go with an iris blur, which is more like a circular kind of blur. You can see that you have a little target going on, and it blurs everything outside of, right? So this is my center right there, where the center of my blur is. You can see the little kind of like a pie kind of looking thing, which has about 1/3 highlighted, and that if you click on that and drag it, it really increases the blur. So I don't want that because I just wanted to show you to demonstrate that. I don't want it to be that much, maybe about, maybe about a quarter just to keep it, a little bit more subtle. But I can move my center right now. It's by default, it's in the center of your image, but you can move it around and I can, center it right on the headlights, for example. You have also those nodes right there, those 4 little nodes, and you can, if you bring them down, you will focus even more on the sharp, on the image that is sharp, and the rest starts to blur. And all those nodes on the outside, you can change the shape. So you can click on that and you can make it a little bit more horizontal, for example, in this case, or, like squeeze it down a little bit so it's a little bit more horizontal. And as you hover over, you can also rotate it. So you can, give it a little bit of a tilt to it. I can try to make it a little smaller, maybe. There you go. I want to have really the focus on the car itself, and I'm going to move that target a little bit like this. So there, so when I click enter or accept, right? So at the very top it says OK, or I just hit my enter key. And now there's my blur image right there. So you can see it's going to be slightly different from the original that I was showing you. This is my original that I've done. It's pretty close actually. I was able to reproduce the same thing, except it's not as blurry. So that's a way to enhance an image, to really focus on something. Again, it's still a little bit grainy on the car, right? So it has a little bit of that grit because, well, it is an old car rusting in the backyard. But the rest really, really blurs out, and it's kind of dull, and it softens the image, and it creates a little bit of an emphasis on the old. I believe it's a nova, which in Spanish means no-go. So yeah, so there's a couple of little tricks right there to enhance an image. The filter HighPass, and then your blur gallery just to focus on something and then blur the rest around it. So at this point, you can always add a couple more adjustment layers. You can put, you can change your levels. You can do a selective color where you can dull down all the brown colors. You can enhance the blue in the sky, et cetera, et cetera. So at this point, it's really how much you want to push or to dull the image, basically. So there, that was the short one. Hope you enjoyed it.